Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to jump into Unearthed Arcana, and we're going to look at a 5th level cleric spell called Spike Stones. This is an interesting one, caused a little bit of controversy at my table, and in my opinion, this is a spell that kind of brings D&D back to its wargame roots. As I said, it's level 5, ranges 3 inches to 30 feet, 3 to 12 turns, plus 1 turn per level. You have to be 9th level to cast this, so it's going to be 9 turns plus 3. So at least 12 turns is going to be the lowest you're going to have. That's 2 hours. And it's 10-foot square per level. And 1 spike per 1-foot square. And you have components are verbal, somatic, and material. 6 segment casting time and no saving throw. The Spike Stone spell causes a rock to shape itself into long, sharp points which tend to blend into the background. It is effective on both natural rock and worked stone. The spike stones serve to impede progress through an area or actually inflict damage. If an area is carefully observed, each observer is 25% likely to notice the sharp points of rock. Otherwise, those entering the area of effect of the spell will suffer 1 to 4 points of damage from each spike stone that hits. Success of such attacks determined as if the caster of the spell were actually engaging in combat. So attacking as if I were a 9th level cleric. Those entering the area are subject to attack immediately upon setting foot in the area and upon each step taken thereafter. The initial step will be sufficient to allow the individual to become aware of the problem only if the initial attack succeeds. So if I blow my to hit roll, he's going to be further into the spike stone field before he realizes it. Otherwise, movement will continue and the spike stones will remain unnoticed until damage occurs. Charging or running victims will suffer 2 points per 10 feet of movement rate over the area of effect after the initial damage is taken before being able to halt. So you're going to continue running into it and take more damage. Others will suffer but 1 additional attack-like check. Those falling into pits so affected by spike stones will suffer 6 such attacks at plus 2 to hit probability for every 10-foot fallen. So 30-foot pit would subject you to 18 attacks, 1 to 4 each, plus 2 damage as a 9th level cleric. That's pretty good for minimum to cast. Plus 2 damage inflicted per 10 feet fallen. So plus 2 damage if I've fallen 30 feet, it's going to be plus 6 damage. That can end up being a ton of damage. And then you take the damage also for the fall. The material component for the spell is 4 tiny stalactites. It should be stalactites are the ones in the ceiling. It should be stalagmites, the ones on the ground, in my opinion, but it's what this spell says. So what do you get out of this? Well, you get a long duration. As I said, the minimum you're going to get out of this, even if you roll poorly on the 3 to 12 turns, you're still going to get 2 hours, 12 turns, because it's going to be 1 per level, plus the base 3, and 9th level to cast. So again, assuming a 9th level caster, higher level caster, of course, will do better. And then what this can do is if you're indoors in a dungeon, you can just cast it and it will cover a large area of the dungeon hallway, for instance, or even a dungeon room. If you and your players want to be in a doorway outside a room and want to trap the room itself as the monsters are coming in to attack you, this is a really good spell for that. By the way, it's a great spell, too, to have the monsters use to trap the players. The players end up in the spike zone field, and maybe the monsters are ones that can cling to the wall, or maybe it's some type of flyer that doesn't need to touch the ground. You can have your players now in a tough spot where they're taking damage as they move about. If they try to flee the area, they're subject to attacks. This can be a really good encounter. A spike stone pit is a lot of fun. What's even more interesting is if you take the spell and put it on a wall. So as the player falls into the pit and they take the damage from the pit, they try to climb out. They can't get out because it's up the wall. The rules don't say you can cause the rocky shape to form on a wall, but it doesn't say you can't. I have allowed this at my table. One player got pretty innovative with it and wanted to do that, and I did allow it. So that's really your call at your table if you're going to allow it to be put on the walls of a pit or anything like that. Then it just acts like really nasty stucco on the wall. But the damage from this can end up being significant. For one thing, you're attacking on the cleric table. You're also attacking a minimum 9th level cleric. So you got a pretty good chance to hit. Also, I don't allow any kind of shield or movement bonuses to armor class. So if I have a guy in chainmail and he's got +1 shield, which drops him to a 3, and then he's got 2 points for his dex, so he's armor class 1. I take away the 2 points for the dex, the 1 point for the shield, and the 1 point for the +1 in the shield. He's only armor class 5 against these. And that's assuming he's got, thicker footwear, chainmail socks, whatever he's wearing. I'm not going to get that picky about it. Technically, the foot might be armor class 8 because he's only wearing leather shoes. I don't care about that. I'm going to go with his base armor class because D&D is kind of set up that way. But taking away the movement points for dexterity, for boots of striding the spring, anything like that, definitely gives your clerics, quote, attack, unquote, a better chance to hit. And then, of course, in pits, these are wonderful. I've used these against player characters in pits. They actually dole out a ton of damage, so you got to be careful with that. The player group is high enough to withstand taking that kind of damage. I have also done a version of this spell where I've made it permanent over a certain area. And the other question becomes, okay, I know the spike stones are there. I've made my 25% check because I was checking the hallway. I see they're there. Can I traverse this area without taking damage? At my table, yes, you can. Because you're aware of the spike stones, you're aware of where you're putting your feet, you're being cautious and slow, I absolutely let you traverse it without taking damage. You have to do so at a quarter normal speed at my table. And of course, if you're attacked by anything while you're in the middle of the field, which I have done, now you've got to fight back. You can't be paying so much painful attention to your feet, so now you're going to be subject to attacks because you're in the spike stone field. It's just an interesting way to do it, and it's something I've done. I've also permanenced this in a dungeon where one particular section always had the spike stones on. I know that cleric spells technically can't be permanents, but it was, DM did it. And once the spells were permanenced, the players knew as they entered this area, they had it marked on their map and everything, that they had to move slowly and be very careful of being attacked. The players actually developed this strategy where they would go one player forward, and then he would secure the other end of where the spikestone field was, and then they'd move another player. And once they had that end anchored, they'd start moving the rest of the party across, leaving 1 or 2 people as the back guard, the rear guard, and having them come up. It can take a lot of time, but it's a great way for you as a DM to make the players really consider their environment as yet another opponent. That's a big thing I'm really enjoy doing in playing D&D, is make the environment a challenge as well as the monsters and tricks and traps and all that fun stuff. But there you have it. That's just a quick look at spike stones from Unearthed Arcana. Let me know what you think if you use this at your table, what kind of success you've had if you've encountered as a player. I have done both. It can be very difficult. It can make very challenging encounter for your players. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Tell your friends, and please take a look at the Patreon. See what you can do to help out the channel there. And that's it for today on page 121. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.